What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to this week's installment on The Lake Show, and I really appreciate you all making me a part of your day again. And last week, well, I got in about the college football playoff, and I also talked a little bit about my personal Heisman Trophy race. Well, guess what? Today we're going to go over that in depth, and we're going to go over the college football awards in general. We got a bunch of things to talk about today, but we're really going to talk about the Heisman Trophy. We really are, because any reasonable person, I get it that Travis Hunter was a phenomenal player this year. I get that he was basically a unicorn and doing, something in college football that we haven't seen ever. But realistically, he is not the Heisman Trophy winner. He should not be the Heisman Trophy winner. But that might be a hot take right now. But hey, I've always been full of hot takes, so I'm here for the ride. I'm always here for that smoke. And as you all know, I'm a Bucked Up ambassador, so use promo code SHOW32. Get yourself 20% off any and all pre-workout orders at buckedup.com. We are live here on a Tuesday morning, and this weekend we have the college football playoff first round starting, and I'm going to go over all those games today. But like I said, we're going to start with the Heisman Trophy. So notably, the Heisman Trophy is, probably the most prestigious award in all of college football. Everybody knows that. It's, for the best of the best players each and every single year in college football. Well, I can safely say that the best player in college football did not win the Heisman Trophy this past Saturday. So you had your finalists. You had Travis Hunter, wide receiver and DB from Colorado. You had Ashton Jeanty, running back from Boise State. You had quarterback Dillon Gabriel from the undefeated #1 Oregon Ducks. And then you also have Cam Ward from the University of Miami. So all four of those guys, rightfully so, had a chance at the trophy, had a chance at the most prestigious award in all of college football, and rightfully so. I have not been one who is terribly big on Dillon Gabriel. Even some people I know who are Oregon Ducks fans, they're not the biggest fan of Dillon Gabriel, and I can see why. He can get into an inconsistent spell, but that doesn't really happen that often. After all, he is the quarterback of the #1 team in the nation right now and the #1 seed in the college football playoff and the only undefeated team in college football right now, the Oregon Ducks. So I could give credit where credit is due, because he's a good quarterback. And not one single quarterback got a first or second place, finish this year in the Heisman Trophy race. It all came down to Travis Hunter and Ashton Jeanty. We all knew that this was going to happen. Obviously, in my personal opinion, I would have elected Cam Ward to win the Heisman, just specifically of how he basically resurrected the Miami Hurricanes football program, and pretty much is one of the sole reasons why Miami went 10-2 this year. And, Cam Ward is playing in the Pop-Tart Bowl. It still pisses me off to say that. Sorry. But it still makes me so angry to say that. And the fact that Miami will not be in the college football playoff, it's just ridiculous. But we're not here for the Miami chat. Maybe a little bit later, but who knows. But back to the Heisman Trophy. Here's the problem. Travis Hunter, while he's a phenomenal player, Travis Hunter is a really good football player. One of the best in the country. And I will die on that hill saying that he was worthy of being in consideration for the Heisman Trophy this year. But my whole issue with this is that while Travis Hunter is the best two-way player in all of college football, he is not the best defensive back in the country, and he's not even the best wide receiver in the country. So hypothetically, I get it that you're good at two things, but you're not necessarily the top dog in any of the other categories. So I think about this. So Travis Hunter also won the Biletnikoff Award, and anybody who knows that, what the Biletnikoff Award is in college football, is for the most outstanding wide receiver in college football. So Travis Hunter won the Biletnikoff Award, which, first of all, kind of ridiculous because, one, I don't even personally believe Travis Hunter is one of the top wide receivers in college football, at least in my top three right now. Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, and I'm sorry, this cat, Nick Nash from San Jose State, is also better than Travis Hunter. Nick Nash had 104 receptions, led the nation, 1,382 yards, led the nation, and 16 touchdowns, led the nation. Nick Nash won the Triple Crown of college football for wide receivers and was blatantly snubbed for this award. The Triple Crown, everybody knows what the Triple Crown is. For those who don't know, is a wide receiver, or really any position, leading that specific skill group in the biggest three phases of that game. So for wide receivers, it's receptions, it's touchdowns, and it's yards. Nick Nash led all of college football in that. He led them all. 104 receptions, 1,382 yards receiving, and 16 touchdowns. I think there's only been 4 cases of a wide receiver in college football winning the Triple Crown. That's immaculate. That is a season for the ages and a season more people should be talking about. But the fact of the matter is that Travis Hunter, he plays for a high-profile coach in a more high-profile conference. So I guess Travis Hunter got the nod for that. Me personally, I would have given it to Nick Nash. He's that good of a wide receiver. I watched some of his highlights. You throw up a 50-50 ball, he's more than likely coming down with it. Again, leading the nation in every aspect, in receptions, yards, touchdowns, every average reception. The Triple Crown of college football, that's so impressive because there's so much more variety in college football. There's so many more teams. There's so many different players. It's not like the NFL where you have 32 teams and usually the star wide receivers on each given team have the best shot of winning the Triple Crown. But a lot of these colleges, they have 4 or 5 wide receivers deep on their rosters. So the fact that one player in the entirety of college football led all receivers in receptions, yards, and touchdowns, that's thoroughly impressive. So Nick Nash got snubbed for the Biletnikoff Award. Now, how does this translate back to the Heisman Trophy? Well, here's the other thing. Ashton Jeanty, he did win the Doak Walker Award, which is the Running Back of the Year award in college football. He is closing in. He needs 130 more yards to beat Barry Sanders' all-time record in a single season in college football history. The fact that he plays on Boise State is the sole reason that I believe he didn't win the Heisman Trophy. 9 times out of 10, a season like this from a running back, that would warrant a Heisman Trophy. Now, he won the popular vote. He won the fan vote. This is, everybody who thinks Travis Hunter is the true Heisman Trophy winner, you're full of it. Everybody who actually genuinely thinks Travis Hunter deserved that award over Ashton Jeanty, you're out of your mind. What Ashton Jeanty is doing is unheard of in college football. I don't care that he plays in a non-Power 4 conference. I don't care about that. The fact of the matter is, at one point in the season, he was averaging over 10 yards a carry. The fact of the matter is, he went toe-to-toe, personally, him, against the number 1 team in the nation, Oregon, at the beginning of the season, and torched the Oregon Ducks defense. He absolutely torched them. So to say that Ashton Jeanty has went up against nobody, that's a blatant lie. That's the same Oregon team at the beginning of the season and now. That's the same undefeated Oregon team that beat Ohio State. That's the same undefeated Oregon team that beat Penn State for the Big Ten championship. So the argument that Ashton Jeanty didn't go up against competition, That's ludicrous. Travis Hunter, on the other hand, while I believe he was a good corner. I believe he's the best two-way player in college football, but he's not the best receiver, and he's not the best cornerback. He's not the best DB. The fact that he actually won the Heisman, like, it's actually baffling to me. Jahdae Barron from Texas, he won the Jim Thorpe Award for those who, thought Travis Hunter may have, won the Thorpe Award winner. But he did get the Chuck Bednarik Award for Defensive Player of the Year, which, again, he didn't even lead the nation in interceptions or pass breakups. So how you can give him Defensive Player of the Year and the Heisman Trophy is beyond me. Realistically, if I was making the Heisman Trophy, like if the Heisman Trophy was up to me, it would have been Ashton Jeanty, Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel's stats are smashed by Cam Ward's in general. And just the fact that Oregon is so stacked at every position. You look at what Cam Ward had to do at Miami and what he, basically turned an entire program around for a whole year. Oregon, they just added Dillon Gabriel. They had everything firm foundation. Cam Ward is the complete culture shock that Miami needed to get over the hump and compete for the ACC. Obviously, it didn't work out that way, but my personal Heisman list was, and I talked about this last week, Ashton Jeanty, Cam Ward, Travis Hunter. And then you could throw Dillon Gabriel in the mix because he is the quarterback of the only undefeated team left in college football, the number 1 Oregon Ducks. I understand that. But Travis Hunter, he doesn't really deserve it. I don't think that warrants a Heisman Trophy. Like, you're pretty good here and you're pretty good there. Collectively, does that make you the best? Maybe, possibly, but I disagree with it. Because what Ashton Jeanty is doing is nothing short of remarkable. Now, and here's the thing. I don't care that Travis Hunter played 1,000 snaps or whatever the heck it is. Snaps is not a stat. That's not a stat line that you should go off of for a Heisman Trophy. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who played a lot of snaps. Maybe not to Travis Hunter's extent. I'll give credit where credit's due about his endurance and everything. I could never play both ways for a whole entire season, constantly, over and over. I didn't do that. Back in high school or my early years in college, I didn't do that. But as remarkable as that is, Jeanty is closing in on a future NFL Hall of Famer's all-time rushing record that has still stood to this day since the 80s. All Jeanty needs is 130 rushing yards. And honestly, depending on how the first round shapes up, Jeanty might get it and then some, and become the sole record holder for rushing yards in a season by a college running back. And I think this was just complete BS. I think Jeanty was snubbed. I think he was robbed. And I feel bad for whoever wins between SMU and Penn State because they're going to get the brunt of an angry downhill runner like Ashton Jeanty. So that's my personal opinion on the Heisman Trophy race. Like, while Travis Hunter is a good player, he's a great player, the best two-way player in college football, he is not the best player in college football. The Heisman Trophy, in my opinion, is like the NFL MVP. That should be reserved for someone who does something so magnificent in a single season that, it's basically a unanimous decision. What Jeanty is doing, I don't care that he's not in a Big 10, SEC, ACC, Big 12. I don't care about that. I don't care that he's in the Mountain West. What he's doing is nothing short of absolutely remarkable. Travis Hunter, he's not even the best wide receiver in the country, and he's not even the best defensive back in the country. Now, while we're on awards, I'm going to touch up on one more thing. I know I talked about Nick Nash, got the Triple Crown of wide receivers in all of college football, which is so impressive. It's shocking. So, tight end Tyler Warren, he won the Mackey Award, and that's the award for the best tight end in America in college football. Tyler Warren's stats this year, 88 receptions, 1,062 yards, 6 touchdowns, which is pretty good. But that doesn't compare to Bowling Green's Harold Fannin. Harold Fannin Jr. got the triple crown of college football for tight ends. He had 100 receptions, 1,342 yards, and 9 touchdowns. That's another thing. Awards, how much do they really mean in college football if this is going to continuously happen? It seems like stuff like this happens every year where a player gets snubbed who clearly deserves it. Yeah, Harold Fannin Jr. plays for Bowling Green. That's in the MAC. They play Kent State, they play Akron, they play Buffalo. I get that. And Tyler Warren plays for Penn State in the Big Ten. He's going to be in the college football playoff. We get that. But the whole issue is give the award to someone who actually deserves it. I don't care about high-profile colleges. I don't care about the blue bloods. I don't care about tradition. I don't care about having good representation in the college football playoff, because if you wanted that, you would have given Ashton Jeanty the Heisman Trophy anyway. So you actually have the Heisman Trophy winner in the college football playoff, possibly competing for a national title. Now, historically, the Heisman Trophy winner sometimes usually doesn't even play in the national championship game. We saw that with Jaden Daniels. We saw that with Caleb Williams. However, it makes more sense. It makes more sense to give the Mackey Award to Harold Fannin because it's not necessarily the most high profile. The Biletnikoff, Doak Walker, and Mackey Award, they're all comparable to each other because it's that level. The next level would be the Heisman Trophy, obviously. My whole argument about this is just college football has an award problem when it comes to players who actually deserve it. Do I think the Biletnikoff Award winner was Travis Hunter? Absolutely not. I said that multiple times now. Nick Nash from San Jose State should have won it, and Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green should have won the Mackey Award over Tyler Warren from Penn State. How do you look at someone who gets a triple crown, someone who leads the nation, the entirety of college football, with receptions, yards, and touchdowns? How do you breeze over that and just settle for a more subpar tight end? And I'm not saying Tyler Warren is subpar because he'll probably be a first-round draft pick in next year's NFL draft. But you get what I'm saying when it comes to these awards. Give it to the person, give it to the player that's most deserving of it. And that's Harold Fannin Jr. for the Mackey Award, and that's Nick Nash for the Biletnikoff Award. So that's my rant to start the show. We're on a roll today. Now, let's transition. Sorry if it's a little bit of a shorter episode, guys, but we're going to transition into this week, December 20th and December 21st. We got the first round of the college football playoff, and I'm going to go over each and every one of these games. I'm going to give you my thoughts, my predictions, and we're going to see, who realistically will come out on top and advance to the quarterfinals. So we're going to talk about first the 12-seeded Clemson Tigers going on the road to Austin to face the number 5-seeded Texas Longhorns. I think I'm one of the few people who actually believe that Clemson can walk in there and they'll probably beat Texas. The way Quinn Ewers is playing right now is nothing short of subpar. I've been saying it for months now that Arch Manning is the best quarterback on Texas roster right now. Quinn Ewers is the second best quarterback on his roster. That's the reality of it. He's very inconsistent. If I was him, now the report already is out that he probably will transfer at the end of the year just because Arch Manning is in the pipeline. And I think realistically, I don't think Texas is going to win it this year. I think Texas next year has a big chance to win it all. I think they'll actually win the SEC next year and probably win the national title. That's how confident I am in Arch Manning in this system over Quinn Ewers. And I still like Quinn Ewers. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he will be an NFL quarterback one day, but in his best interest, I feel like he should stay in one more year, transfer out, go to another program, and get some confidence back. Because a lot of people in Austin, at least from what I've been hearing on social media and everything, is the fact that people in Austin, Texas, people at the Texas Longhorns are not happy whatsoever with Quinn Ewers. They would much rather have Arch Manning under center. So right now, Clemson is a 11.5-point underdog. I think that's too much. Clemson has a legit defense. Clemson has such a legit defense. Now, it's really, in my opinion, is going to come down to quarterback play, like it always usually does. Can Klubnik outduel Quinn Ewers? I personally think he can. Like I said, I'm not that high on Quinn Ewers anymore. At least for this year. My mind could change next year. Do I still think he's a first round draft pick in this upcoming draft? No, not anymore. The way he ended the season this year, I don't see him. I just don't see it. I don't see him being a first round draft pick. He might be a third day kind of guy. But who knows? That could change next year if he transferred out. But the fact is that I trust the Clemson defense more than I trust Quinn Ewers and the Texas offense right now. Now, if Arch Manning was playing, I'd say game over. Arch Manning and Texas is going to stomp Clemson. But right now, I'm going to take the Clemson Tigers in the upset. I think Clemson's going to win this game 27-24. All right, next we're going to talk about Tennessee and Ohio State. So 9-seeded Volunteers heading on the road to the 8-seeded Buckeyes. Oh, so here's the issue with this. I believe that Ohio State got the worst matchup possible. So Ohio State is favored by a touchdown right now, and I still think that's a little bit too much. With Will Howard at the quarterback, I don't necessarily trust Ohio State, but it's the fact that Ryan Day, I do not trust Ryan Day right now to deliver against a Tennessee Volunteers team that still beat Alabama, that still was very competitive in the SEC. What has Ohio State been struggling with for the better part of a month? Teams that can run the ball, big time. Teams that can run the ball. And what has been their biggest weakness? Offensive line. That's Ohio State's biggest weakness right now. Because of all the injuries, offensive line. And they, in my opinion, have a subpar quarterback. He's an average quarterback. So we got that out of the way. But what does Tennessee do? Probably as good or better than anyone in the country. Stop the run and run the football. Dylan Sampson, he's better than Khalil Mullings from Michigan. So if I'm Ohio State, I got a terrible matchup because Tennessee's defensive line, led by James Pierce, who is going to be a first-round draft pick next year. If I'm Ohio State, this is one of the worst lucks of the draw I could have ever gotten. And my personal opinion on it is that I think Tennessee goes into Columbus and upsets Ohio State. Do I think it's going to be a competitive game? Yes, 100%. If the weather's terrible and Ohio State can't throw the football, it might be a long day for the Buckeyes. But I'm going to take a semi-low scoring game. Semi-low scoring. I'm going to take the Tennessee Volunteers to upset Ohio State 21-17. So now we're going to head to Happy Valley. We got the 11-seeded SMU Mustangs heading on the road to Penn State to face the 6-seeded Nittany Lions. Now, SMU is an 8.5-point dog in this game. I believe that's a little too high because Penn State, realistically, who have they played? Oregon and Ohio State, the two biggest games of the year for Penn State is a loss. So, looking at that, And the only losses SMU has is to a BYU team that was pretty good at the beginning of the year until they fell apart at the end of the year. And they lost to Clemson on a 56-yard game-winning field goal in the ACC title game. As much as I think SMU, if they play like they did against Clemson in the second half of that game, I think they can beat pretty much anybody in the college football playoff bracket. I'm not going to take SMU, but I will take I'm going to take Penn State in a close game, but I think it's going to be like a 31-28, 31-30 kind of game, but I'm still going to take the Penn State Nittany Lions. It's not that I don't trust SMU. It's also the fact that it's a Dallas, Texas team heading to Pennsylvania, middle of winter, mid-December, freezing cold temperatures, possibly snow. I don't necessarily trust SMU to do that. And then our final first-round game, we got the Indiana Hoosiers, the 10th-seeded Indiana Hoosiers, going up against the 7th-seeded Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So right now, Notre Dame is favored by 7.5, and I think that's a little light. I would personally think that Notre Dame would be favored by 9. So the only team that Notre Dame has lost to this year is Northern Illinois. But since that game, running the football with Jeremiah Love and Riley Leonard actually taking care of the football, I think Notre Dame now here's the common denominator between Indiana and Notre Dame. They've played nobody this year, especially Notre Dame. They didn't play anybody this year, realistically. But Indiana, their biggest game of the year was Ohio State, and they got absolutely bludgeoned by the Buckeyes in Columbus. So the only thing Indiana has over Notre Dame is they had a tougher game on the schedule, just because Notre Dame played Texas A&M at the beginning of the year. You know, Texas A&M's an okay team, but they're nothing like Ohio State. I would take Ohio State over Texas A&M any day of the week. But I think Notre Dame is going to roll Indiana. I still think Indiana is a little bit overrated. Even though I love Curtis Rourke and I love Kirk Cignetti, I like Indiana. I like their offense, but I don't trust their defense. And honestly, I don't even trust Curtis Rourke to get it done against a high-profile defense. Like Ohio State, failed miserably, and Notre Dame statistically has one of the best defenses in the entire country. So I'm going to take the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and probably handily, I'm going to say like a 35-17. That's what I'm going to go with. And that's the college football first round, so I can't wait to see that this weekend. It's going to be a fun time. So I'm going to do two more things before we close out today. So, obviously, everybody knows my opinions on Brock Purdy. I think he's an overrated quarterback. I think he's middle of the pack. And let's see. Yeah, he's not having that great of a year. He's trying so hard to steer the ship in the right direction when it comes to the 49ers. But here's the reality of the San Francisco 49ers right now. They're getting old, they're getting expensive, and they're unhealthy. So Brock Purdy, while a lot of people can put blame on Brock Purdy, and certainly rightfully so, because he hasn't really played up to par like he has the past couple of years, but when your team is very old, very brittle, and very expensive, it kind of handicaps you. Christian McCaffrey played one game this year, and I drafted him in fantasy. Go figure. But CMC got injured again a couple weeks ago, and his season's done. Kittle, he's still good, but he's been battered and bruised. Sometimes he misses games. You got Brandon Ayuk, who's out for the season. You got Deebo Samuel, who was dealing with injuries and is not necessarily the same player he was last year. He's severely regressed. And then you got Trent Williams on the offensive line, who's supposed to block for Brock Purdy, and he's not there because he's injured. There's a lot of other factors that go into this when it comes to Brock Purdy. But I'm going to do a Brock Purdy or again. I'm going to take whatever starting quarterback in the NFL, over Brock Purdy. We're going to see where I still think Brock Purdy lands. So, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jameis Winston, I would take Brock Purdy. Bo Nix. Say what you want, but I'm taking Bo Nix because he has a great shot to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, and I would seriously consider giving it to him. CJ Stroud or Brock Purdy. Even though CJ Stroud seriously is kind of in a slump this year, I'll still take CJ Stroud. I think he's that good. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll right the ship. He does have, Stephon Diggs isn't there. Was he really doing much when he was? Somewhat. But I'll still take CJ Stroud over Brock Purdy. I would take Anthony Richardson, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Tua, Russell Wilson. So right now, there's 10 quarterbacks in the AFC alone. In the NFC, what would I do? Kirk Cousins or Brock Purdy? Kirk Cousins has looked absolutely putrid these past 2 months. I would take Brock Purdy. I would take Kyler Murray over Brock Purdy. I would not take Bryce Young. I would take Caleb Williams. I used to say I would take Dak Prescott, but not anymore after his injury. So, and for Dak Prescott, obviously, is Cooper Rush, so I'll take Brock Purdy. Jared Goff, I'd take over Brock Purdy. Jordan Love, I would take over Brock Purdy. Matthew Stafford over Brock Purdy. Sam Darnold over Brock Purdy. And then you got Desmond Ridder, Tim Boyle. I would take Jalen Hurts. I would take Baker Mayfield, and I would take Jaden Daniels. So how many quarterbacks would I take above Brock Purdy? Well, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So Brock Purdy would fall at my 20th best quarterback right now. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. I said before that he's closer to the bottom half of the league than he is the top half of the league. I'm not a big fan of Brock Purdy. I think he's an overrated asset. Do you give him $50 million a year if you're the 49ers? I'd be very hesitant to. I know he's proven that he can run Kyle Shanahan's offense, but you have a lot more issues going on in San Francisco other than Brock Purdy playing poorly. You got guys that are quitting on the team. First of all, the linebacker who walked out of the 49ers game, Devontae Campbell, that's his name. Sorry, lost my train of thought real quick. But Devontae Campbell, he was released by the Niners. I believe he was released. Should have been. Now, do I wish anybody to lose their job? No. But you have to realize what sport you're in. You are in a team-oriented sport. You are in a sport that preaches sportsmanship and being a teammate since you were in Pop Warner. I've learned to be a good teammate ever since I was a little kid. And just growing through the years. From Pee Wee, Pop Warner, to junior high, to high school, and when I was at Geneva College, that early stint in my college life, you were taught from a young age how to be a good teammate. And Devontae Campbell, here's my issue with it. He was good. He was a good linebacker. But he's not Fred Warner. He's not Dre Greenlaw. Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw are probably two of the top 5 linebackers in all of the NFL, and San Francisco has both of them. So Devontae Campbell, you should have known that you were going in for a reserve role because Greenlaw got injured last year and finally came back, and now you have Fred Warner. Like, a bunch of people are dealing with injury after injury, and especially for the 49ers' sake. You've had players that have played with torn ligaments, broken bones. You've had players that played through losing family, their children, relatives, And they still showed up because they had a responsibility to their teammates. They still had a responsibility to the guy next to you that you share a locker room with. That's the one thing that I would hold over Devontre Campbell's head a little, is just the fact that when times are tough, you cannot say no to your coaches. That when they need you, you had Fred Warner go down and you had Dre Greenlaw go down last week, and now all of a sudden you're not going to play, especially when your team needs you. That made no sense to me, and it was blatantly disrespectful to your teammates. So it does not surprise me whatsoever that that they parted ways with him. But like I said, the 49ers have a lot of issues. They're 6-8 on the year. They're not out of the playoff race yet. They're not. But they might as well be. I don't think they're going to recover. I don't think they're going to make any sort of run that would warrant them being Super Bowl contenders, because they're not Super Bowl contenders. I think that they need to switch things up in San Francisco. You need to get younger. You need to get good. First of all, you always need to get good, but you need a legit quarterback. There's a reason Brock Purdy was the last pick in the draft years ago. There's a reason for that. But you need a stud quarterback. You need to rebuild the offensive line. You need to continue to pay your defensive pieces. You still need to draft more depth. You need wide receiver replacements for Ayuk and Debo, because they're getting older, they are getting brittle, and they are getting expensive. The reality of the NFL, it's constantly changing like that. You need to get younger. You need to get, healthier. That's the reality of the 49ers right now. And they kind of have a culture issue, because players like Devontre Campbell, when they do stuff like that, that shows bad precedent in the locker room. That's the type of stuff that will divide a locker room. I was surprised that he made it to the locker room after walking out, because if I was his teammates, I would have been pissed, which realistically they were. So that's the whole spiel about the 49ers. I knew that I was going to talk about that. One more thing before I go. One quick thing. The Philadelphia, I have to own up to what I said months ago. This was during a little bit before the Olympics. I said the Philadelphia Sixers with Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and Paul George would be one of the representatives in the Eastern Conference Finals this year. Oh boy, how wrong was I? Because Philadelphia currently is 12th in the East with a 7-16 record. You got Joel Embiid not taking it serious. You got Paul George getting injured. You got Maxey getting injured. I know they play tonight. I think they play the Pacers tonight, or it was last night. Either way, when it comes to a situation like this, your stars need to show up. You got Joel Embiid, who he should be a superstar, but I'm thinking that's too generous of a term, because he wants to consistently load manage his entire season. I get load management. I get it, because it's a lot of games. It's an 84-game schedule. I believe 84. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I get it that you want to be healthy for the entire season, but I don't, you get paid to play basketball, man. That's part of the deal. That's what you signed up for. That is legitimately what your contract asks you to do. Play basketball. He's older, he's more brittle, and he's not the best big man in the NBA either. There's a lot of issues with the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm not going to get into all of it today, but just wanted to note that, yeah, I was blatantly wrong about the 76ers. They got a lot of issues, and the process is done, and the process resulted in no championships so far for Philly. So I got to bite the bullet on that one. I thought that Philly would be running the East. No, they're closer to the Washington Wizards than they are to the Boston Celtics or the Cleveland Cavaliers. And that's going to wrap it up this week on the Lake Show, everyone. Again, I really appreciate you all making me a part of your day. Be sure to stay tuned for next week. I have a special episode coming out for Christmas, so that'll be a fun episode to do. But I really appreciate you all making me a part of your day again. Be sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends, leave some comments down below. I'm your host, Dominic Lako. God bless.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up, it's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's